In a quiet town named Willow Creek, where the sun dipped below the horizon with a yawn, a peculiar little girl named Elara often wandered the streets alone. She had a penchant for collecting forgotten toys, the kind that lay hidden under bushes or behind the rusty swings of the abandoned playground. Her eyes, the color of fresh mint, sparkled with mischief and a hint of something unspoken, something that made the townsfolk whisper behind their hands when she passed by. Elara's house was a quaint, yellow cottage nestled at the end of a cobblestone lane. Its ivy-covered walls held secrets that only the creaking floorboards knew, secrets that seemed to echo in the silence that enveloped the place when the last embers of the day's light faded away. Her mother was a painter, lost in a world of colors that never quite made it onto her canvases, and her father, a silent man who spoke more with his eyes than his mouth, worked tirelessly at the local library, organizing dusty tomes that hadn't seen the light of day in decades. One evening, as the street lamps flickered to life like a line of candles on a birthday cake, Elara stumbled upon an object that was not like the others. It was a small, worn-out book with a tattered cover and pages that smelled of dust and secrets. The title, The Whispers of the Forgotten, was scrawled in fading ink, the letters seemingly dancing before her eyes. Intrigued, she tucked it under her arm and hurried home, eager to explore its mysteries in the safety of her dimly lit bedroom. The house greeted her with the usual silence, the only sound the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. She climbed the creaky stairs, her heart beating in time with the old clock's pulse. The book seemed to whisper to her, its pages fluttering as if eager to reveal the stories it held. Settling into her cozy bed, she cracked open the cover and began to read, her voice barely a murmur in the stillness. The words flowed like a stream through her mind, carrying her away to a world where shadows had names and whispers grew louder with every page she turned. Elara's eyes grew wide as she read the opening lines of the book, the words painting images of ghostly whispers that danced in the corners of her room. The air grew colder, the shadows thickened, and the ticking of the grandfather clock grew distant, as if it were trying to warn her from the other side of a vast chasm. She ignored it, her curiosity piqued by the macabre tales that unfolded before her. The book spoke of a vengeful spirit, a young girl named Lila, who had met with a tragic end in the very playground Elara frequented. Lila had been shy and misunderstood, her cries for help unheard by the townsfolk, until it was too late. Her soul, trapped by unresolved anger, sought companionship in the only way she knew how, through the whispers of the forgotten toys she had left behind. The tales grew darker, the words on the page seeming to ooze a palpable malice that made Elara's skin crawl. The whispers grew louder, no longer confined to the pages of the book. They seeped into the fabric of her room, echoing in her ears, a cacophony of lost souls yearning for understanding. A cold draft brushed against her cheek, and she swore she could feel the weight of a tiny hand in hers, guiding her to a page with a single, stark sentence. "Find me," her heart pounding. She looked around, the room now alive with the shifting shadows of invisible presences. The house grew quiet again, the whispers fading into a hush, leaving only the persistent tick of the grandfather clock to keep her company. But Elara knew she wasn't alone. With trembling hands, she turned to the next page, the words blurring before her eyes. It was a map of Willow Creek, the playground marked with a crimson X, and a single word that sent a chill down her spine. Tonight the book slammed shut, and she jumped, her breaths coming in shallow gasps. The room was cold, colder than it had ever been, and she could feel the presence of Lila, urging her to seek the truth behind the curtain of the night. Elara slipped out of her bed, her bare feet tiptoeing across the chilly floorboards. She knew she had to find Lila's resting place, driven by a strange sense of responsibility that she couldn't quite explain. She dressed quickly, pulling on a thick sweater and her favorite pair of boots, the ones with the fuzzy lining that her mother had bought her last winter. The house was eerily silent as she descended the stairs, the clocks ticking a solemn reminder of the task ahead. The night air was crisp as she stepped outside, the moon casting a silver glow upon the cobblestone street. She clutched the book tightly, the map acting as a beacon in the gloom. The playground lay ahead, a jungle gym of twisted metal, and the swings swaying gently as if rocked by invisible children. She could almost hear their laughter, a haunting melody that grew louder as she approached. Her heart thudded in her chest like a trapped bird's wings. The playground was empty when she arrived, the shadows playing tricks on her eyes, making the toys seem to twitch and move. But she knew she wasn't truly alone. She could feel Lila's presence, a cold embrace that grew stronger as she stepped onto the damp earth. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and she realized with a start that they were coming from the hollows of the old, gnarled tree that stood sentinel in the center of the play area. Her eyes widened, and she took a tentative step closer, the book in her hand feeling like a talisman against the unseen. The whispers grew clearer, and she could make out a soft, childlike voice, weaving in and out of the others. "Find me," Elara pleaded, the words cutting through the chill like a knife. Her heart ached for the lost girl, and she reached out to the tree, her fingertips brushing against the rough bark. It was cold, colder than it should have been, and she felt a jolt of energy that made her pull back with a gasp. Her eyes fell upon a small, almost hidden compartment in the tree's trunk. It was sealed with a wooden plug, carved with the same initials she had read in the book LM. Her trembling hands worked the plug free, revealing a dark cavity that smelled faintly of decay. Inside, she found a tiny, ragged doll, its eyes missing and its stuffing spilling out like entrails. It was the source of the whispers, the vessel that held Lila's tormented soul. Elara took the doll, her heart racing with a mix of fear and pity. She knew what she had to do, the book's instructions clear in her mind. The ghosts of Willow Creek needed her help to find peace, and it was her fate to be the one to guide them. The wind picked up, and the whispers grew to a crescendo, swirling around her like a tornado of lost souls. The tree groaned, its branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, and the ground beneath her feet began to shake. The whispers grew into a deafening roar, and she clutched the doll tightly, whispering the words of the ancient ritual she had read, her voice shaking but determined. The earth trembled more violently, and she felt a hand, cold as ice, grip her ankle. She stumbled, almost dropping the doll, and screamed. The hand pulled her, and she saw the ground crack open, revealing a pit of endless darkness. She kicked free, her heart racing as she backed away, reciting the incantation with renewed vigor. The tree's limbs thrashed around her, and the shadows grew denser, coalescing into forms that were almost human, almost tangible. The whispers grew to a fever pitch, and she could see the ghosts of the forgotten children, their translucent forms wailing and reaching for her, for the doll. With the last of her strength, she flung the doll into the abyss, the earth swallowing it whole. The whispers stopped abruptly, the tree stilled, and the ground grew quiet once more. The ghosts faded away, leaving only the cold, silent night. Elara stood, panting and trembling, staring at the spot where the doll had disappeared. She had done it. She had released Lila's spirit. But she knew this was just the beginning. The book had spoken of more forgotten souls, more whispers that needed her help. She turned to leave, her eyes never leaving the tree, wondering how many more secrets it held, and how many more nights she would spend in the embrace of the supernatural. The journey home was a blur of moonlit streets and rustling leaves. She didn't notice the chill that had lifted or the way the shadows no longer seemed quite so menacing. Her thoughts were consumed by the book's whispers, the stories it held, and the realization that she had been chosen to be the town's reluctant guardian. As she slipped back into her room, she placed the book on her nightstand and climbed into bed, the echoes of Lila's voice still lingering in her ears. Tomorrow would bring a new day, but the night had changed her forever. The whispers had found a listener in her, and she in them. Her eyes drifted shut, the grandfather clock ticking away the hours, but sleep was elusive. The town of Willow Creek had revealed its dark underbelly, and she knew she had a responsibility to heal its wounds, one forgotten soul at a time. The story of Lila had ended, but Elara's was just beginning, and she had a feeling it would be a long, unsettling night.